welcome to the Feasts of Ingathering. Welcome to the waning half moon. So this is the time of the month, every month, when the moon shifts from her bright half to her darker half. And we gather, we reserve the right to go within. So if you go outside, the moon is like this. It is a half moon. At every one of the Feasts of Ingathering, it's the waning half moon. The most important thing here at the Feast of Ingathering is resonance. So we're going to talk about what that means, and we're going to actually practice it. Also, the revolution. What is this? What am I talking about? What does it mean for us? Vibration. We'll talk about the physics and the metaphysics of vibration. And then energetic navigation. We touched on it last time, but we're going to dig more into what it is, why it's important, and how to do it. And then finally, we're going to conclude with some context. So that's like the seasons that we're in, the seasons within seasons that we're in, the stars. I'm going to bring in some Vedic astrology and the mysteries of our context. We're going to start with some basic foundational physics to understand what we physically are and to understand the shift that's happening for us. Resonance. All systems, including molecular systems and particles, tend to vibrate at a natural frequency depending on their structure. And this is known as the resonant frequency. So this tuning fork right here, just based on the material that it's made of, the size and the shape that it is, there is a tone that is its fundamental resonant frequency. And that's the tone that it is built to emit that tone. And what happens, the phenomenon of resonance, is even if this tuning fork is vibrating very, very softly, if it's a very, very quiet tone, or even if it's still, and another tuning fork comes by and it is singing that resonant frequency of the first tuning fork, the first tuning fork is going to start to sing. It can't help it. It's what it is made for. That is a resonant frequency. And that is the tone that it will express the loudest. That's what it's designed to do. Few more points from the realm of physics. Everything is energy and vibration. That's every particle, every molecule is in motion at its own specific frequency. Everything is intimately connected with every other thing. So we know this through quantum physics. We're just discovering more and more about how truly interconnected and entangled our world is. Everything is a part of one thing. Nothing is outside of the thing. This is the totality, by definition, contains all things. Nothing can be excluded from totality. And also, our perceptions impact reality. Time and time again, scientists change the outcome of the experiment depending on their expectations, depending on their observation. That impacts the reality in scientific experiments, which makes a lot of sense when we remember that everything is energy in vibration. And the physics of wave behavior, including resonance and interference, is relevant to things like our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our assumptions. These things are physical things. These are vibrations. These are waves, and they impact the physical world. And even though everything is energy and vibration, everything is intimately connected, and we're all part of one thing, we have believed that we are separate from our source. We have believed that we are separate from each other. And because we hold those beliefs, the holding of those beliefs impacts the experiment of the world as it is created. And so we create a world and structures that can only reflect that belief. They can't not be impacted by that belief. But those structures and those beliefs are incoherent with the rhythms of what is natural. And what has come to be accepted as normal, we're habituated to it, it's familiar, it's what we expect. That's not the same thing as being accurate or true or natural or inherent. So that's like the tuning fork may be playing a tone for its entire life, And it's the only thing that it knows, but that doesn't mean that it's its resonant frequency, because there is nothing but truth that is true. Only truth can be true. So even though we have these deeply culturally entrenched, historically validated, societally validated norms and expectations, we can only deny our nature and our truth, our resonant frequency for so long. And there comes a point where the naturally occurring resonance of the tone that is inherent and true is experienced in a way that makes an indelible impact of the self. And this inflection point, when that tone is experienced in a way that you can't unknow it, that's the revolution. That's what I'm talking about. And at this point in humanity's history, the availability and our capacity to perceive this tonal experience is occurring at an extraordinarily rapid and wide sweeping rate. This is the revolution. It's a personal encountering with your own resonant frequency, which, as we're all aspects of what is, there's commonality in that resonant tone. So this is an individual experience. It's an individual revolution, and it's also a collective thing. This is changing who we are individually and in collective groups and as a species. And change is necessarily destructive to what has been before. What has been ends and dies in order for the new to be born. But we don't know what the new is going to look like. And so that creates fear of the unknown. And when we feel unstable, we do a thing where we anticipate that whatever it is, it's probably going to be worse than what we've got, lowering our own expectations to somehow protect ourselves from disappointment. We also might be like yearning for and idealizing the before times. Like in some ways, things were easier before we felt this incompatibility with life as we know it. We also might feel some grief. And we might not even know why. Like these past several years, people's lives are changing dramatically. There's loss, deaths in the family, there's divorce, moves across the country or across the world. Like, how many people do you know who have been like seriously, their lives have been upended? And our systems are changing too. It's like people are just getting so uncomfortable in, like, whether it's their job or their relationship, like their status quo. It's like they just can't vibe with that anymore. And it is so uncomfortable to try to sit in it. So this change, it's going to render much of what was created from a belief structure that was colored by that inherently false separateness. It's no longer going to be serviceable to us as a changed people. And our mind loves to know what's going on. It wants to figure it out. And when it can't figure it out, and it's kind of fundamental to this shift that like our mind can't really figure it all out, not in the way that it has figured things out, which has been based in those old structures of power over and separateness. When the mind can't figure it out, it tries to resist the change, which is uncomfortable. That's like when we try to force ourselves into a job that is like we are being pushed out of, just like energetically being pushed out of. And the resistance is really uncomfortable. That's like heat, like friction heat in the electrical wire. And that is part of what contributes to burnout. So even if you don't really know people who have had big life shifts recently, you're not talking about this shift in humanity with other people. Like you're not talking about this shift in humanity. Even if that's not on your radar, I bet you know a lot of people who are feeling burned out, who are just feeling like exhausted and worn out and like overwhelmed and grief. A lot of people are feeling this and it's impacting them, even if they don't know what's going on. So this is a lot. This is a lot. This sounds kind of dramatic and intense and kind of difficult. And it can be less difficult, kind of, in the sense that it's happening. Like if you're hoping that it could be less difficult, like I want it to not be happening. I want change to not be happening. Like that's not going to happen. To my perception, this is happening. But though change is challenging, it doesn't have to mean suffering. And there are some things that we can do to support ourselves and each other in going through this transition. And the things that I want to touch on today that we can use to support ourselves is the practice of resonance. I want to talk about resonance and energetic navigation and applying a contextual reference and using that to inform our own change. But before we dive into more content, let's do the thing. Let's do some resonance. All right, so we just practiced resonance. We did the practice of resonance. Now I want to talk a little bit about what is going on. What is resonance? What's happening? So again, everything is energy in vibration, and all of the things that we know or think we know and that we act in accordance with, the beliefs that we act in accordance with, falls within a certain bandwidth of frequencies. And in every instant, in every like microsecond, we have an opportunity to align to any frequency. And we all feel these frequency shifts, like when our mood shifts, like when we get scared or when we get inspired, we feel our energy, our vibrations sync. And usually we choose the same frequency range over and over and over again. We have options, but we stick with what we know and we habituate it and we feel like it is stable. And we feel like that's who we are. That becomes our identity. But in reality, we're basically radio receivers and we're capable of tuning into and aligning to and then emitting as our expression any frequency. At the very least, we certainly can. We are designed to have the capacity to tune into, to align to, and emit and express our own resonant frequency. That is what our system is designed to express. So this is where the practice of intonation and sharing resonance comes in. Just like the tuning forks, it's like when someone or something is offering a tone that's similar to our own inherent frequency, that's like the I know you and you know me. When that's similar to our inherent frequency, even if it stretches us out of our comfort zone, we can attune to it and we can begin to attune to that frequency. And the more we practice tuning into that frequency, the more we seek out being proximal to, being close to that which can express and which is expressing our inherent frequency, then the stronger that new frequency becomes. It can kind of stretch our frequency bandwidth. And that's part of what's uncomfortable these days. It's just like, as we're going through this big shift, we're feeling like a stretch of a frequency bandwidth that just because we're not used to it, it can feel kind of uncomfortable. And what we're practicing here at the Feasts of Ingathering is listening to that tone, which is like it is the words, but it's not just the words. It's not just the information or the stories that we're sharing. It really goes beyond that to the frequency, like the knowing, the physical vibration of the knowing. When it's like, I know that you are continuous with all that is. I know that you and I are connected. I know that you are this individuation who is going through this process and you're learning as you go. You're learning to trust being in the moment and that like emerging guidance that comes. We have a space here where we can look each other in the eye and it's like it's a new eye. And when we're listening to each other, we're listening to a new tone. And when that tone is received in listening, then it grows stronger. It's kind of like capillary action. When I'm really, really hearing you, and you are speaking into that tone, into this new tone, maybe it's uncomfortable, but we're all stepping into it. Like we're doing this. So when we practice that, we practice receiving each other, we practice speaking it, then it grows stronger. So we benefit the revolution through quantum entanglement. We're benefiting not just ourselves, we're benefiting the tone itself, and we're benefiting how that tone of the inherent truth that connects everything, we're benefiting its accessibility to everyone and everything. So we're not only like strengthening ourselves, but we're being stewards of this new tone. It's not a new tone, but it's more accessible than it's been before. We're facilitating its accessibility. It's always been accessible because it's our fundamental resonant frequency, but people are doing it. People are doing it more. And we're not just working on hitting the high notes. It's not just like reaching for that tone. It's like this is the tonal integrity that we were talking about. It's like it's really working on focusing and like on a moment by moment basis, like continuing to be with that tone, continuing to be in attendance to and in honoring of that emerging tone as it is coming through us by moment. And there's so much these days that can distract us, that's designed to distract us. There is so much these days that is designed to frighten us. So practicing that tonal focus, practicing that resilience of like maybe we get a little staticky, but then we come back to it. That like tonal awareness of even knowing when we're staticky and distracted or in a frequency bandwidth that maybe we used to be comfortable in, but it's not where we are anymore. It's not where we're going. So like developing that tonal awareness. So again, it's like this is the point of the Feasts of Ingathering, to practice this together. So we talk about the power and the practice of practicing resonance together, also understanding the physics and metaphysics of vibration and strategies to support us in aligning to this revolution, this like awakening that's happening. Another strategy is energetic navigation, which is a term that I use that basically describes using this emerging awareness of frequency to inform our actions rather than allowing the norms and the expectations to inform automatic behaviors that just propagate those same standards that just keep us in the same rut. A lot of us here, it's like that's not even an option. We can't even be that anymore. It's like that's hardly even an option. So instead of just being aimless and helpless without like any idea of how to move forward, like what we're discovering is this new operational system which requires us to kind of trust this emerging perception of frequency, this emerging awareness of our vibration. If you've ever had it's like you've had an experience that it's just like it gives you a lift. It's just like you feel lighter just thinking about it or thinking about engaging in it. You just feel a little bit like expansive and free, this like sense of well-being, excitement, but also peace and restfulness. That, to my perception, that's an energetic yes. Like that is the universe through your energy system giving a big thumbs up. It's like, do that. That's a yes. And then when you're engaging in something that feels dampening, like that job that's like, I just can't, and you feel like maybe fearful or confused or fatigued, that is a no. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the thing itself is a no, but at the very least, it is eliciting within you a belief structure that's not going to be in resonance. So that was kind of like what we were talking about there, like with the tonal integrity. It's like belief structures can come up that aren't in resonance with us. So then we have an opportunity to move through that. But when this happens, when you're getting like an energetic no, you can't really see clearly because you're in that vibration where things like scarcity and separateness exist. It's like you're playing with that frequency. So it's hard to see, like, well, what is the belief structure? It's like, because in that whole energetic terrain, you can get into the space of like judging yourself, or being like, oh, I shouldn't be so judgmental, or I shouldn't be thinking with scarcity mindset. And it's like that is just stitching you into that whole terrain all the more. So what we can do at that point is just like, where is the energetic yes? Like, where is the lift? We can just like find a little lift, and then from there we can see a little bit clearer. Like, there's going to be something that's going to bring us to a place of greater clarity, greater joy, and greater service to the collective and to the revolution. And then we can see where to go after that. So this change, this awakening, it's revolution, it is challenging. It's like it's this whole new operating system that we're all learning to work with here. But it's not a burden. This isn't a problem. This truly is an opportunity. And the opportunity, it's like aligning to the revolution means leaning into our personal empowerment as abundantly connected to the source of all supply, and so intimately connected to each other that recognition and acceptance and love are inevitable. It's like, when I see you, when I know you, like, I know what you are. Like, that's humbling and inspiring, and like I get a big energetic yes from that. It's like I adore you. I know who you are, and that is so, so, so amazing. Aligning to our inherent vibration, aligning to the energy of the truth of your nature and the wave of revolution means stepping into the knowing that we are the very energy of creation, who is exactly capable of creating our world together. What we're being called forward to is growth. We are being called to grow. So I want to just pause here with the question then, like, how do we grow? Nature teaches us how to grow. Nature is our context. Nature is our home. Nature teaches us how to grow through this transition, because everything is frequency. The rhythms of nature are what we are. And there's relevant information in the things like the seasons, day and night, birth and death, the moon phases, and the menstrual cycle. This isn't just background information. This is the frequency. It is the tone of exactly what we are, and that we can no longer afford to deny. So, going back into science again, a brief lesson on fractals. So for something to express fractally, it must exhibit self-similarity at multiple levels of scale. So like this image of a tree here, if we broke the branch off right here and we put this branch into the ground and zoomed in, this would look like a tree. If we broke off this branch right here, the littler branch, and put it in the ground and zoomed in, that would look like a tree. So it's self-similar at multiple levels of scale, whether telescope or microscope, there's a similarity there. And nature expresses fractally multiple levels. And this is true of cycles as well. So natural cycles that exist on any fractal level can teach us relevant information about cycles, transformation, and change by observing the way that nature changes. So the fractal levels that we're going to touch on are the solar seasons, the moon phases. So the solar seasons, that's like winter, summer, etc. The moon phases is like waxing, waning, and then also the menstrual cycle, like ovulation, menstruation, etc. So nature, at all of these levels of scale, nature moves through its outward expression with the zenith at the summer solstice, full moon, and ovulation, waning through the luteal phase and autumn, and down to the nadir of the cycle with menstruation, new moon, and winter. So where we are right now At the fractal level of the year, which is determined by the sun, it's in the season of winter. I consider winter here between Samhain and Imbolc. It's like this whole bottom swing right here. So right now we're in between Samhain, this is Halloween, and the winter solstice, which is the darkest night of the year. That's the midpoint of winter, just like the summer solstice is the midpoint of summer. In the solar cycle, we're right here in the feminine retreat time of the year. And the months go through this cycle at a monthly frequency. And at this point in the month, we are right here. At the Feasts of Ingathering, we're always going to be right here in the month. It's the pivot point, the point that we go within during the month. This is an important time of the month. It's an important part of the cycle. And I'm going to talk more about why this is an important part of the cycle and why honoring this part of the cycle is important to the revolution. So what we're doing here, we are turning within in this darker part of the month. We're tuning in, we're reflecting, and we're releasing, and we're realigning. So you were saying like releasing. That's what this whole turn of the year affords us to do. Now is the time to really let go, really drop into surrender, that the inclusivity of the feminine yin dark turn of the year of the month affords us, going into surrender of the darkness of the unknown within. And I did say that this turn of the year and the month is a turn towards the feminine. So masculine energy and feminine energy are present in all things. Masculine energy is expansive, is outwardly expressive. It's like the waxing light. It affords us action, expression, and outward motion. And feminine energy moves inward. It has the energy of waning, turning within, and entering the unknown. And feminine energy is inclusive, like death, like the embrace of death unites us all. Feminine energy is more about synthesis and integration. It's more right-brained, and masculine energy is more about analysis, distinction, and left-brainedness. And masculine energy is amazing. It gives us awesome things like the individuation of separate fingers, which lets us do very cool things. We can do awesome things because we have distinct fingers. But when that analytical, exclusive, separating energy is divorced from its natural counterpart of oneness and inclusion, we're just going off, probably feeling some loneliness, probably feeling some separateness. And that fear of the feeling of being isolated and separate drops us out of our frequency. And that's kind of where humanity has been living. But it's not true that we're separate. So returning to that feminine energy within each fractal level, within each day, within each breath, within each month and each year, doing that return into feminine energy, into rest, into unity, into inclusivity, into that right-brained mode, unites us into the truth that we are all one. So we have an opportunity every month with the waning moon to lean into that autumnal luteal turning within. So these Feasts of Ingathering, this is where that turn within begins. We're kicking off the turn. We're kicking off that transition of going within, going into rest, going into surrender. And it is revolutionary to do this. It is revolutionary. It's in defiance of the expectations and the norms that are built in the denial of our inherent frequency. It's in defiance of the incessant summertime, perpetual daytime, you versus me, incessant production. Aligning to the rhythms of nature is a revolutionary act. And this is a regular cyclical thing, each breath withdrawing from the incessant summertime, each month, each day, returning into that oneness. So it's that foundation of our oneness. From that place, that's where we can expand outward and express individually and then return again. And tuning into the vibratory signature of abundance and gratitude is also a revolutionary act, because society that is built on the masculine energy that's just divorced from the rhythms of nature, it keeps us hunting, it keeps us searching, it keeps us hungry. And a society that's built on that can't sustain when we're aligning to the truth, the true frequency of our inherent birthright to be inextricably connected to the source of all supply, because our beliefs touch everything at once. So when we're really tuning into the vibratory signature of abundance, that we are richly resourced, it might not look like what we thought it would, but we are connected, inextricably connected to the source of all supply. And gratitude, like opening up our hearts in that joyful expectancy, that like knowing wink, that's like the universe is unfolding for me and I can open my heart, because everything that is coming to me is coming for me in exactly the ways that I need it. If it's humbling, if it's inspiring, it's magical, it is meeting us where we need to be met. So feeling this abundance, choosing to find that abundance and gratitude and aligning to it and believing it, is a revolutionary act. And just zooming out a little bit more for a final piece of context, astrologically, so I do Vedic astrology, which uses sidereal calculations, which is measuring based on the astronomical positioning of the stars. I want to focus a little bit more on the external planets, because the further out planets, they move slow and they give us some perspective on what's happening at the collective level. The closer planets are more individual, but from the 0 point of the unknown, the within, from the 0 point of the unknown within, where anything and everything is possible and everything is united in that infinite possibility, we can hold all things at once. We can hold collective energy. And then from this place, we can alchemize collective energy and work through that in our individual embodiment. So Jupiter went retrograde in the sign of Taurus on October 9th, and it joins Uranus, which is also retrograde in that sign of Taurus as well. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and Uranus is the planet of the unexpected and the revolutionary. So those two planets are in the sign of Taurus, which is about what we value and what nourishes us and our physical world and stability. And both of these planets are retrograde. Astronomically, that means like from our position on Earth, the way that like all of the cycles line up, it looks like they're going backwards in the sky. And astrologically, what it does for the energy of these planets and like what that energy impression makes for us is it's an energy of slowing down and going within and reflecting. So this retrograde time of these two planets, it's a time on behalf of the collective to go within instead of expanding outward. Jupiter is about expansion, but now it's retrograde. It's a time for us to consider what we internally hold as valuable and feel into the bounty that is contained within a seed, and seeding the revolution within the fertile ground of the self, nourishing and drawing nourishment from the rich, vast, abundant internal foundation, which is countercultural. That's what we were just saying. It's like it is revolutionary. It is countercultural to find that source of resource within. So that's what I feel like these two planets are calling us towards on behalf of the collective. And now there's a few more outer planets here. So Saturn just completed a retrograde on November 15th, and now it's moving direct in Aquarius. Saturn teaches us where our lessons are, and Aquarius is the sign of revolution. It usually indicates a new way of thinking and humanitarian ideals. And Pluto just completed a retrograde on October 11th, and now it's moving direct in Capricorn. And Pluto represents death and rebirth. And Capricorn represents structures, systems, governments, and authority. So Over here, Jupiter and Uranus are taking us within, finding value in our own expansiveness within, setting a new foundation for which to nourish new seeds. And over here, Saturn is leading the march of Aquarian humanitarian change, and Pluto is breaking down and rebuilding structures and systems. So, these new seeds that we're going within to plant and to nourish, we don't know what they're going to be. That's part of being in this place of the unknown. That's kind of a part of the passage here. But I feel like we can trust that the trajectory is going to go where it can only go, which is in greater and greater alignment with our true resonant frequency. This is the wave of the revolution, and it starts within. So this is why we're coming together to turn within and tune into our inherent frequency and hear it in each other and support it in each other and reflect it back to each other and hold that tone for each other, because there are challenges in this transition, but we can do it. We are doing it. So when we gather here, retune, realign, and resonate in the energy of the revolution.